AAD. No, it's not Annus Domini. It's a period of time when CDs had a magical sound. Want to know more? Let's get to it. Okay guys, before jumping in, I'm very glad to say that this video is brought to you by Surfshark. What is Surfshark? Very simple. It's a VPN. I know. Some of you are going to say, oh, VPN, oh, Surfshark, we've heard this. Well, actually, I must admit that I have tested it and I had a preconceived idea of VPNs. Now things are completely different. It's very fast to install, very easy. You don't have to fiddle around with IP addresses and things like that. You just install it and you start surfing, and it's a fast surf. You would say maybe, why? What's the purpose on this channel? Very simple, because I, in first person, experienced severe trouble trying to buy certain items in the US, for example. And I know a lot of US buddies are having trouble to buy stuff here. Why? Because of geolocks. It's very hard sometimes due to restrictions because of licensing and things like that to access other internet present in other countries. In fact, a VPN does that. It allows you to enter internet from anywhere in the world, virtually, clearly. Do you remember that problem I had with Tascam cassettes? A very kind gentleman sent me a cassette, but if I had VPN with Surfshark, I could have just ran inside the Tascam site and buy my own cassette because it's blocked here, for example. But not only the streaming, the download of high-resolution audio. I don't know if this ever happens to you, but other countries have some difficulties in downloading high-resolution files, for example, from HD tracks or other sites like that. With a VPN, you can just simulate you're entering from the US and you have no problems, you have access to everything. Plus, if you use this code, you can have a discount and you can also have 3 months for free. All of this 30-day money-back guaranteed. I would do it. I did it. Start now. Okay. Let's go back now to our video. Okay guys, so as you have seen from the title, we are going to focus on a specific period of time and a specific type of CDs at the beginning, the inception of their very long journey. When that type of medium, that newly released medium, just had a special sound. In the beginning, a lot of people didn't realize it. And we're going to see why after. While instead, if we pick them up today, we can truly understand there is something magical going on. Okay, let's take a step backward. Before proceeding, I want to say something very important because it always comes out in the comments and it's so obvious, but I think it's good to say. What am I referring to? Well, it's clear, it is obvious, it is banal that recording, mixing, and mastering are much more important than this, okay? Than this type of CD. Absolutely. Although these elements take place inside this type of CD, as we're going to see, but generally speaking, clearly, these elements are much more important than anything, than all your gear, than the type of media, regardless all this. Okay, we said that. Let's dive in now, and we're going to go through 8 main points to try to understand a little bit better this world, what was happening in that period of time at the beginning of CDs, and why, let's say in my opinion, they have something so special that brings it more close to what I love, which is mainly analog music, as you know. Let's start. Okay, point number 1. What is AAD? AAD, among others, is a code, also known as SPARS code. And SPARS is the acronym for Society of Professional Audio Recording Services, which was a group of 11 labels born in the beginning of the 80s, which decided that when CDs, the compact disc, arrived, there was a little of confusion. So they decided altogether to create this code in order that a consumer, when buying a CD, could have easily understood what type of source, what type of processing that CD went through. Now, let's put aside that in a few cases the SPARS code was mistaken. Okay, I mean it's almost impossible to trace back. Let's just take it for granted that in the majority of cases they were functional, they were active, they made sense. And the SPARS code is created by 3 letters, as we had said, the code, where the first letter is the recording type of process, analog or digital, because the letters is always going to be or A or D, which stands for analog or digital. The second code, the second part of the code, the second letter is the mixing. Okay, after recording, they had those files, they had those tapes, whatever it is, and they decided to do it or in an analog domain or in a digital domain. Okay, and the third part of the code, the third letter, is dedicated to the mastering. Okay, not the medium. A lot of people mix this up. No, it's the mastering. The final master was or digital or analog. In some cases, we also find a fourth letter, which was not approved by the SPARS, and it's very rare, but that would indicate or the type of instruments, because sometimes they were using digital instruments like synthesizers or analog instruments. But in most cases, instead, you had the fourth letter, which indicated which type of remaster you were having in your hands. Okay, if the remastering was digital or analog. Okay, that was the important part. Clearly, you're not going to have AAA, for example, AAA, all analog, and holding a CD. No, that's impossible. The final master obviously is connected to the medium itself. Okay, let's pass now to our second point. Let's take a look now at the different codes very rapidly, because there are several and it's easily found on the web. In any case, it's fun to go through them, also because there are little characteristics behind them. Okay, I'm going to have to read, it's easier. Okay, obviously the first one is AAA. As we said, analog, recording, mixing, and mastering, all analog. That's what we like, that's what we love for vinyl, for tapes, etc. Okay, let's proceed. Then we have ADA, where the mixing in the center has a passage in digital. And that is mainly what's happening, we could say, for the new vinyl reissues, because we have the tapes, the first A, they convert it to digital, they EQ it, re-elaborate it, do whatever they want, and then they create another master, an analog master. They need an analog master for the record. Okay, so that's something still used, obviously, but you're not going to find these codes anymore because they ceased. I forgot to say this was mainly going, as I said, no, I did say it, around the 80s and 90s, okay, but then it slowly disappeared, it faded away. Then we have DAA, where, incredibly, only the recording at the beginning was digital. This was something taking place a little more in the earlier phase, when you were starting to use digital tape, like AAD, DAT, digital VHS, and things like that, or just a normal PCM recording, which was then mixed and mastered in analog. This can still take place today if you want to give that analog mastering, mixing, mastering taste in the end. So it's not something obsolete. Let's proceed to the next one. DDA, recording and mixing, is digital. And this can happen for, especially I would say, for the new vinyl, which then is going to create an analog master for records, for vinyl. Okay, so this is quite used still today now. Then we have the one I like the best for CDs, AAD, where, as you can understand now, we have an analog recording, analog mixing, and then clearly you have to do a digital master for CDs. That's why I enjoy this. That's why I think it's superior, because you have this great analog part of the processing, and afterwards we're going to see more in detail what this conveys, what this brings to the final result, and then clearly you need a master for the CD. So the closest you can get, I would say, to the master tape if we're talking about CDs. A lot of early CDs, though, already had AAD, the next code, where there was immediately the conversion of the analog tapes, if we're talking usually of older recordings. That's mainly for reissues, clearly, and then immediately processed, equalized, mixed, and then mastered in digital. But that's already during the 80s, 90s, okay? So it's not something recent, even though clearly that's taking place also today. The CDs you're buying, reissues, that's the same process. Tapes, and then they immediately do everything in digital. Not necessarily, okay? Not necessarily, but the majority is doing that. Then we could say, a parallel version that is still adopted, DAD, where we have a modern contemporary digital recording, for example. They converted, as I always say, a lot of times in mastering, you convert everything to digital, several times actually, not only once, but let's say there is a conversion in analog, for example, to combine the different tracks. That's always something very good to do. It just gives a better mix. Altogether, everything is more coherent. A lot of people don't think so. A lot of people do. I'm just telling. Okay, and then clearly they have to do a digital master. So this, as I said, is very used today as well. Finally, we have the most far from our interest, we could say, the DDD, which is funny because I remember that during the 90s, I was with my fellow buying CDs, and he was very, very knowledgeable about classical music and things like that. And he was always telling me, I know nothing at that time. The better. I mean, more Ds you have, the better it is. Oh boy, if that changed. In any case, there are excellent DDD products, CDs. Absolutely. I'm not denying this. I just prefer the other type, but not always, okay? Not always, absolutely. Let's proceed now to our next point. Point number 4. So why so many people, if you go around in forums and things like that, usually say, I don't know, not in the most cases, I don't know, but in several cases, they prefer more modern CDs. They exclude the AAD era. I'm sure a lot are talking out of prejudice. They don't know, they don't even have an AAD. The ones I have, I bought them in the late 80s and early 90s. But apart from that, I also bought new old stock, we could say, from the different markets. But just to say, I have experienced this in all of the journey. But there are also other reasons why people tend to don't like that much AAD CDs. Well, first of all, there is this preconception, I think, that it's something very old. It's at the beginning of the technology, so it can't be good. No, it needs time. Like beta releases now in software, it's never good in the first moment. The first iPhone, the first stuff, it's always better afterwards. It's true in most cases, not in this case, I think. And we will see, in fact, there is some aspects that, in fact, I think somehow demonstrate that this is not completely true. But what was going on also? Well, they did several bad CDs in the beginning, okay? Absolutely. We can all agree on that. So if you were exposed to those and you remember how bad, like I remember Michael Fremer is always citing the same Roxy Music CD. And he said, or Roxette, no, maybe it was Roxette. I don't remember. It's one of the first CDs that he is always declaring as terrible, just the worst thing you ever heard. Well, of course, if you have that impression, that's going to remain with you. That's going to stay with you. In any case, then what was happening? The first CD players and converters at home were pretty mediocre, not very good. So that was also keeping in the minds of people this bad impact in the beginning. Okay, audiophiles we're talking. Normal people were saying, hooray, wow, fantastic, let's go ahead, let's keep CDs. But others, especially not immediately, but after some time, just realized that when new things were coming out, they immediately associated that bad period also to the CDs, to the medium itself. thinking that it wasn't that good. Plus, I would also add actually that jazz and classical music CDs were already better. Okay, in fact, I find that mainly those types of CDs, those genre are much better. Rock and pop suffered a little more the first period. But there are great editions of famous rock pop albums that sound better than the ones we have before. And we're going to see why in a second. Let's proceed. Point number 5, pre-emphasis. Yes, I think we have to spend a few words on this. In the early days, several chips, DAC chips, were mainly 14 bits, okay? So there was noise coming from them due to the quantization errors. At that point, they introduced this pre-emphasis in order to push, it's noise shaping, to push upper high in the inaudible, theoretically, spectrum, the noise. In that way, with the proper decoding in early CD players, you would have a de-emphasis, hence a flat response. Now, clearly, we don't have dozens of CDs. Well, a few there are present, mainly in classical music actually. But if you now, today, buy those CDs and you put them in your normal compact disc player, and it does not have pre-emphasis. I mean, the vast majority of newly produced from the 2000s on doesn't have that. It's going to sound very harsh. So even that conception of harsh CDs, in some cases, people probably experienced that several times and reported that and remember that. So, and that was taking place in the AAD phase mainly, okay? That's why I'm citing this problem. In any case, I will put a link here below where there is a small list where you can start from, where it says, for example, a good number of titles that has pre-emphasis. So if you have those CDs belonging to that era and you always said this does not sound good and you have a modern CD player, now you know why. Okay, let's proceed. Point number 6. Now we are going to do a little test, okay? I think it's fun. I think it gives a little more information, even though it's not going to absolutely resolve the issue, the problem. What we're going to do, we're going to test an AAD CD. Here we go. The police. I think you can see the AAD logo. Early version of Outlados d'Amor. We're going to listen to So Lonely, track number 2. And we're also going to listen to a 2003 version, which clearly is ADD, okay? This is the Super Audio CD, but it also has a CD layer. I didn't do anything to the files. I just ripped them from the 2 CDs, okay? But I'm going to have to normalize the levels, the perceived loudness, the same numbers of LUFS, LUFS, because otherwise it's gonna sound completely different and you cannot understand which you think is better. In fact, this test is going in that direction. I'm not going to tell you which is which. I'm just going to put track 1 and track 2, then pause the video and try to say and think which one you like more. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, I'm going to put the 2 tracks here below in download, so you can also hear the difference in loudness. Are you ready to know which is which? If you don't want to know, pause. I'm going. Here I am. Okay? Yes. Track number 1 was the modern version, the newer version. 2003 version, okay? Clearly, track number 2 was the 1991, I forgot to say this, 1991, one of the first issues, releases coming from the master tape. Okay, point number 7. Our test brings us now to this new point where I would like to really understand why, at least in my opinion, AAD sounds better. Well, the first main reason clearly is the mastering, okay? This is paramount, and I'm clearly referring to the loudness war, because if you go now and download the 2 files and you put them in Audacity, I'll put a picture now here. As you can see, on the top is the 1991 and below is the 2003. And you can already, with this gap of 10 years, okay, we're not showing 1979, 2019. Here's another image where you can see how the loudness war progressed. Astonishing. It gives me the shivers because we're losing a lot of albums. People are getting to know those albums with that sound, and I hate this. It's very, very worrying. In any case, apart from that, clearly the mastering has a big role here. The early CDs were practically almost flat transfers, I would say. Very little EQ. And when there was EQ, it was done in the analog domain. That is also very positive. It does not create that disease. Remember I did the video on the digital disease? This is the aspect. It was not a video. Here's a link, first of all. It was not a video of digital versus analog. Okay, I guess I have to explain it because a lot of people got mad there. It was a video on mastering because this is the problem with this darn loudness war. And here we have proof, and this is one of the reasons, main reasons why AAD CDs sound so good, in my opinion. Plus, there are other reasons. First of all, no, actually second of all, the DACs, okay? Someone would think that the early DACs, it's not that even early at that point in the 80s. In any case, surely they're not high tech as the ones we have now. But if you go and look, we have a lot of special DACs, special chips that are currently used also today. Like, for example, the famous Philips TD-1541. That is also used in very high-end CD players. Yes, still today. Like the AMR CD players. Excellent products. Or, for example, as you know, I have that vintage CD 94 by Marantz. That's vintage. If you want to hear a little bit of that sound, here's a link so you can understand a little more. So that type of conversion, it's a ladder conversion, a ladder DAC, is greatly coming back. In fact, the best DACs today are ladder DACs. So as you can see, we are clearly reliving what was taking place more or less in the early stages of CDs. Clearly we have better DACs, also ladder DACs. But as you can see, we're going to that technology because it has a more euphonic sound. And that is also why this type of CD, I think, has that magical sound. Okay, I think now you got an idea. I just want to give you a few inputs, a few suggestions, because there's so many. I mainly love the reissues of, clearly on CDs, of, for example, Riverside. The Riverside jazz CDs are fantastic. Blues also, as I said, jazz, you can find these. At least in Europe, I find them for just a few bucks, a few euro. Also the one on Impulse, Verve, fabulous. Here we go. All these are AAD. I think you can see it. But not only, I mean, also this one, fantastic. One of my favorite discoveries, recent discoveries. So you need to go out and start buying those old CDs because they don't cost that much at all. They're better than the reissues, and now you know why. Okay, guys, please write in your comments your favorite AAD CDs. I'm very interested. As you know, I'm going to go out and buy them. Thank you for watching, and what else can I say? remember that music was born analog. Bye. Well, guys, if you're enjoying my videos and you're enjoying my channel, please consider to subscribe by clicking the black and white logo here below. Also, don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll never miss an episode and you will become a true member of the analog community.